Hello, hello, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a brilliant guest lined up today. So the one and only Mr. Michael Bailey. Michael, thank you for coming on today.
No problem, Chris. Thanks for asking me on.
No, thank you for coming on. So for those of us who haven't seen you online, haven't seen you on podcast interviews, you're very active on social media. Tell us, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? All that sort of black stuff.
So tonight, no, I'm Michael Bailey from Michael Bailey Estate Agent. I originate from London, but I now live in Preston with my wife and my three children. We relocated here in 2012, and I started in agency in the late winter of 2006, early January 2007, and I've just done agency ever since, really.
Yeah, great. A lively time to get into the estate agency world. So I'm sure it went from absolutely manic for the first year to pretty quiet the next week. Pick
You
your
know
time.
what? It in a way, it's one of the things in my career I'm most grateful for. As sort of crazy as that might sound, because those times were quite tough, to say the least. And that really gave me a good grounding as to, yeah, this stuff just doesn't happen by itself. You've got to do various things to make stuff happen. So, yeah, it was a good grounding.
Do you think that the best agents out there have been through some sort of market turn down like that? Because obviously, if without sounding too harsh here, if you're only an estate agent who only is kind of seeing the good times, when it gets a bit tougher, you kind of think, well, what do I do now? My phone suddenly stopped ringing. What do I do next, sort of thing. So do you think that's a benefit to people who've kind of suffered through those kind of tougher markets?
Definitely, yeah, because obviously you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to do things differently. Yeah, I can't remember. I think it's a phrase. Show me good agents. Bad markets make good agents. I think that's it.
Yeah, well, I like that one. Very, very true. So talking of good agents, there you go. Seamless segue there. So you launched your own estate agency business, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
So how's that gone in a summary?
Yeah, we launched in September 2019. Like everybody, we sort of had various ups and downs and iterations of team. But generally, yeah, it's one of the best things I've ever done.
Is there a line in the sand where we look at it and go, right, actually, never make any long commitments about a year after Michael Bailey goes into a new career? Because it's like new career estate agency, financial crisis. Michael Bailey starts Michael Bailey Estate Agents, COVID. It's like,
Yeah,
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 you're timing it well.
yeah, it's true. But again, I guess the COVID thing was a little bit similar in as much as like it what did that I think that gave us all a really good grounding in service because and how to serve people because there were some really tough times all round in various reasons and some people shut up shop in that respect in terms of moving. So again, it's a different dynamic, but perhaps a reminder or quite reminiscent of '08.
Yeah, very much so. So you went out your own, and about 5 years or so, almost exactly 5 years ago, you sort of went out on your own. How did you kind of get traction in the marketplace? How did you get your first instructions kind of and get the phones ringing in your business?
I spent probably the first 6 months just literally on the phone, talking to my sphere of influence probably 3 hours a day minimum. And taking it even through the sort of COVID period in the early part, just generally being curious, finding out people were okay in my world, not prospecting for business really, just generally being interested in people and seeing if there were things I could help them with. And thankfully, because of the relationships that we built there, the law of reciprocity being as it is, then we did win business off the back of it, albeit that wasn't necessarily the reason why we started to nurture those relationships very strongly.
Do you think that's a little bit overlooked sometimes when people launch their own estate agency business? Because you're going to spend the next 5 to 10 years trying to get everyone around you to know, like, and trust you. So the obvious answer is to kind of start with the people who know, like, and trust you already, which is your friends, your family, family's family, whatever it may be. And that's kind of overlooked by a lot of estate agents because they kind of don't want to tell everyone what they're doing in case it all doesn't go quite to plan.
Yeah, and I think also there's a lot of people don't think there's probably as much support out there from their sphere as there definitely is. And again, I don't know what the stat is, but I think it's approximately like each person has probably got access to 200, 250 other people. So if you focus on those people that you've really got strong relationships with, then you'd expect off the back of that would happen. I think a lot of people perhaps get bogged down in tools and systems and getting your business cards looking all beautiful and all that kind of stuff, and probably don't take the action early enough. And therefore, by the time perhaps if you're in a fortunate position of having some cash, your cash runs out. you're quite away from probably getting to realise some money into the bank. So yeah, certainly I think it's definitely underestimated and overlooked.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the advice I give to pretty much everybody when they launch their business is literally go to your phone book. First job, go to your phone book. Anybody you know, like, and trust in the local area. Maybe not ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, but apart from that, pretty much message everyone saying, "This is what I'm doing. This is how you can help me. Do you know anyone?" Because if you're 6 degrees of separation away from Brad Pitt, I'm pretty sure if you message everybody who lives in the local town, you'll probably know somebody who is looking to buy or sell in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and I think as you go around in your local town, you'll soon work out that those links are there, not to Brad Pitt necessarily, but from people that you perhaps know, but you didn't know that they knew someone six down the line until you start having the conversations and almost not like a family tree, but mapping a little bit who knows whom and how you can um, help them, and then hopefully they might be able to help you further down the line if that's what they choose to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having a video call just before this with a potential client who's going to start working with ourselves based on the Isle of Wight, where he would admit to it as much as I would admit to it. Everybody knows everybody in the Isle of Wight. Like it's a very close-knit community, is the way to phrase it, I think. And that network there, if you know somebody, you know somebody, you know somebody, you know everybody in the entire island sort of thing very quickly. So there are certain instances and certain situations where you can kind of literally put that on steroids because if you live in a tight community, that base is there already. That sort of family tree, as you mentioned, is already set up in that sort of
Mm.
place. So we met at the what was it? The mastermind event that Sue and George put on at Keller Williams a little while
Yep.
ago. And one of the things that came across to me in that conversation is how passionate you are about customer service for the guys you work with. So tell us, through, has that always been a passion for yourself, or is that something that's grown as your sort of business has grown? You found it's kind of more and more important, or kind of where does that come from?
No, I just think that's something that's always been quite important to me. And then it's probably got more and more important having worked perhaps in a previous volume based business where that sort of fell to the wayside a little bit. And then the understanding of that, of how I think where many larger and smaller businesses fail is they start thinking about the end of the line, completion, money coming and all that kind of stuff. Whereas my thought, as many other people's, is, well, if we focus on the front end a bit first, that will naturally follow.
Hmm.
And it's that's kind of why I think service is really important, because you're ultimately trying to do the right job for people, but equally hopefully get referrals from people further down the line. And that's certainly one of the primary ways we've grown.
So I can't remember the exact stat around this. So this is going to be very grey, so apologies on that. But I was reading the other day about how the first impression you make. So let's say, for example, you want to get across you have excellent customer service. Actually, if you really heavily weight the beginning of your interactions with the client, so the first kind of day, 2, 3 days, their socks are absolutely blown off by how amazing you are. They'll think you're amazing still for the continuation of the entire process. You kind of set that early good impression about this is what we do sort of thing. Whereas if you don't do that and actually you try and sort of recover it later on the process, and as you sort of say there, throw the kitchen sink at completions and exchange and champagne at that stage, wherever it may be, they've made their impression already over the last 3, 4, 5 months or so. And therefore it's kind of, you're trying to reel that back in when actually if you've done the work earlier on, you'd make you find your job is a lot easier later on in the process.
Yeah, I also think that's why anyone that even indirectly represents us, so our photography people that are all obviously third party contractors, I love it when we get good comments about them, which is frequently because, as you say, that early interaction is being set and they're brilliant ambassadors for us and the brand. And even though obviously we have a lot to play in that early stage as well, it does it does set down those thought processes of people of what the service that they're getting looks like.
So talk me through some actionable steps. So if I was an agent listening to this thinking, I want to improve my customer experience, I want to get more reviews, my customers to be loving me and sending me chocolates and flowers and whatever else it might be. What are some actionable steps that anyone listening to this can take into their business today that will improve their customer experience?
Um, More frequent contact with clients. Make sure your sort of vendor care is something like that term, but it's exactly what it is. It is up there and it's frequent and you're checking in, and it's not just, not in a multitude of ways. Not everyone's easy enough, to get on the phone, but you know, I know lots of agents do this as well as us, but using WhatsApp, I mean, it's such an easy tool and an easy way to communicate with people. And I guess as well being interested in the people that you're dealing with. and working out how you can best help them and referencing that all the time so they really understand that you understand them. It isn't about the sale of the house. It's about perhaps say in my case, this isn't the case, but my wife being pregnant and our house being too small. So there's a real need for more space. I just, yeah, think depth and breadth of contact.
And I think that's well the number one reason that people disinstruct estate agents is lack of communication. So it would be pretty obvious to kind of look at it and go, actually, if we want less people to disinstruct us and have a better customer experience, then just key up the communication and actually just increase that part of the business. So therefore, people actually know and understand what you're doing. I think you very much sort of pointed to a bit of a gem there as well. So you mentioned with regard to your situation. So, you're looking to upsize your property. Actually, your goal is to just get to a larger home. The fact you have to sell your property to get there is kind of like a speed bump. Just you kind of need to overcome that. There's a big red button that says, Michael, press this, you can be in your next 4-bedroom detached house sort of thing. Great, you'd probably be there. So do you think it's a lot more about kind of aligning the business goals with the individual's goals? So you're all kind of all pulling in the same direction, that they actually you're seeing the bigger picture rather than just going, I've got to get this one house under offer.
Definitely. And I think it also gives more of a visible face to the client for our team. So they get to understand, well, why are we trying to move Mr. and Mrs. Jones? Well, in fact, we've got a client in this very scenario currently, a baby on the way. So we had a very strict set of parameters to try and help them to move by X date, because obviously that aligns with the baby, the birth of the new baby. But by giving everyone the understanding of putting a human face on that, essentially makes it much more compelling for us. And the client feels like we definitely look after them. One thing I always say on appointments is it isn't really about the sale of this house here. This is just a vehicle to get you to the 4-bed detached that you need because you've got baby along the way. And I think people really resonate with that. We understand what they're looking for and how we can best help them. And without information, you can't really advise people correctly, I don't think.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always thought if you don't know the whole picture, it's very hard to put two and two together. So sometimes you talk to people and they go, "Oh, we're looking to sell," and you go, "Why are you looking to sell?" They're like, "Oh, we just want to sell," and you're like, "That doesn't really add up." And then you kind of dig it a little bit deeper and they go, "Oh, actually, we're getting a divorce," and you're like, "Okay, right, now it makes sense. Now I get
Mm.
it. I see where you guys are coming from, and I now understand the timescale. I understand why you want to move, etc." So you kind of need to understand your clients first of all before you can actually kind of take them through that process correctly.
Yeah, one of my coaches always says that you're only 2 questions away from being an excellent agent rather than a good agent.
Yep.
And in some scenarios like the one you've just described, of course, it's awkward to try and pry into that so you get a full understanding. But we do need to know, otherwise we're perhaps offering solutions which aren't suitable for that particular person at the time.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that a lot. So you mentioned recommendations and referrals there. So how do you, or what strategies have you put in place so that clients are more inclined to refer you to their friends, families, and other people in the local area?
So it's something that we mention a few times throughout the process, not kind of over the top after recommendation and referrals, but we let people know from the first get go that that's what the business is built upon. And we say that when we're booking appointments in as well to make sure that other people understand that we are like recommended. And we always mark recommendations as well. So if we get a recommendation, we'll mark the appointment booked, not a completion, to kind of reward essentially if someone gives us an appointment, well, bottle of fizz, or obviously depends who the people are. But I think that's important as well to mark the referral and recommendation, not just the completion, because a lot of those recommendations may never come to fruition in any way, shape, or
Mhm.
form.
Yeah. I think people like to refer people, don't they? People like to help. And if someone comes to them and goes, I'm looking for a good estate agent in X area, people would like to go, oh, you want to speak to Michael. Michael's great. Michael's a safe pair of hands. But obviously, they're putting their neck on the line then. Because if it's a terrible, same way with your photographer, if it's a
Mm.
terrible experience for them, it reflects badly on them, sort of thing. So therefore, you need to be really confident with the person you're referring to make sure it actually doesn't, A, kind of backfire on them, which then by default will backfire on you as well.
Yeah, and yeah, you've got to uphold the recommendation in the way it's been given, like you say.
No, I love that a lot. Yeah, all about the client experience. So I think you even mentioned it on your website. I think on your intro video, I think on your website, I'm sure it says about, lots of our business come via recommendation. So obviously that is pretty much at the core of what you do by the sounds of it.
Yeah, very very important to us, and again, it's although it's not necessarily in of itself um, scalable as such. Well, it is scalable by the number of transactions we agree increasing, because obviously that then leads more to recommendations and referrals.
Like it. So you've recently had a milestone in the business, I hear. So you've just hit the big five.
Yeah, we just hit our fifth birthday, so we had a great event in partnership with a local charity that we work with quite closely. And yeah, it's been like everyone. I think people sometimes can think, or perhaps no, I'll rephrase, social media can portray that everything's always unicorns and rainbows, which isn't the case. Like being in any sort of business for a reasonable amount of time, it isn't easy necessarily, but it's definitely rewarding. And you just gotta keep going. Not everything's going to be simple.
So I owe you a slight apology actually, and I've not told you this. So to give on the picture, we went to the mastermind event that I was sort of hosting, I suppose. We started, everyone did introductions around the room, sort of thing. And one thing Michael mentioned very early on was his target for the year. And it was a very big figure, to say the least, with regard to number of instructions coming into the business. And I kind of thought in my head at the time, I thought, that's very typical estate agent. Sort of, big figure, I want to get to so and so amount of money or sort of bits and pieces. And then later on, Michael mentioned, yeah, I want to earn as much money as I can in the business. So therefore, I can then able to give as much money as I possibly can to the local community. And I thought at that time, I'm a bastard. I'm a bad person for thinking that Michael was a typical estate agent, just going, it's the big figure. And you kind of stopped me in my tracks there. So, first of all, I will apologise for thinking that in the first case. I completely misjudged you by an absolute country mile. But second of all, how important is it to give back to your local community from your point of view?
Yeah, it's essential. It's absolutely essential. There's various reasons why I set the business up. I've achieved some of those things to a greater or lesser extent already. But yeah, I'm quite a relatively humble person. I'm not massively into cars or material things like that, but I am into legacy and change for good, using money for good. So yeah, we support a number of different things with numerous sort of kids football teams. We contribute regularly to the charity where we have the event. We're the local cricket club main sponsor. There's other bits that we've been involved in as well. People that aren't from Preston won't know this, but essentially there's an old tram bridge that spans the river in Preston. And it had been shut for maybe 3 or 4 years, and I was part of a group which managed to encourage the local authority to go for the levelling up funding. So they've secured the money to replace the bridge. So that stuff is important to me because that will be there forever and a day, hopefully afterwards, and I can say to the children, yeah, I was kind of involved in that. So yeah, change, much like the industry, I'm very much about improving the industry and holding myself to a higher standard. And I think the same goes for all the charity stuff that we do. I've always been brought up in that way, and even through my school career, we're always doing sort of charitable stuff. So yeah, it's something that's really, really important to me.
Well, fair play to you, mate. All honesty, all straight talking, absolutely fair play to you. I think it's a brilliant thing to be doing, and I tip my hat to you. That's absolutely brilliant. So well done to you. Keep going with it. It's definitely making a huge difference to the community, and I think that's a really great thing to do. So very much well done from me.
Thank you.
So talk me through how the business scaled. So were you a one-person band when you first launched 5 years ago, or do you have a team sort of from day one, or how sort of the team shape grown over the years?
So initially from the September to the July-ish of the September 19 to July 20, it was just me. I think again this is perhaps a little thing that is a bit misconstrued in some place. Not about me, but about generally. It's all well and good to leverage, but my view is if you're going to leverage, you're going to need to have like worked really, really super hard for. So we did that. By the time I brought leverage in, then it was probably 3 months too late, really. But again, it was that. I think everyone has this dilemma, which is cost versus investment. And it took my coach and my mentors a long time to let me see, one, if I carried on doing what I was doing, I'd be in a bad way quite quickly. And two, it was about investing in that person. And as long as that meant that there was an upside to that for the business, then it made sense, and an upside for our clients. So we've had the largest we got in that iteration of team was 3 employed staff. And then we acquired or brought into the business a self-employed agent as well. And then we scaled that back to just having three employee members of staff in total. And we're at that way probably until I don't know early one last year. And now we're back again with six different people in the business. They're a mixture of third party sort of providers, virtual assistants, employed staff, just to try and make sure, and an agent, just to make sure that we're always moving forward. And when things aren't working, we're looking to change that and move in different directions.
And what was your first hire? What was the first position you looked to fill once you got to that sort of capacity after a year or so?
So I'm very much followed the millionaire real estate agent book that we talk about at Keller Williams. So I was an admin assistant.
Yep. Cool.
Which did roll on into further bits from there, but it was to be an admin assistant. Yeah.
I like that. And what are the sort of problems you've had then? So you've scaled from a one person band to a team of, well, five or so now. What's been sort of the speed bumps that you've kind of gone through and gone over that time period?
The main speed bump is improving as a leader. Really, I'm probably the absolute atypical, really good negotiator. Manager leaves, you get the manager job, regardless of whether you've got any leadership skills or not. I wouldn't say I don't have leadership skills, but they're perhaps not as refined as I think they are now. And the speed bumps really are probably around that kind of thing. And in some cases, as I got more experienced in that role, making the right decisions more quickly, and at other times not making decisions quickly enough, and yeah, really around that kind of stuff.
So you've obviously got the team around you, and it seems like to me you've got a really good idea about what you want your business to look like. Help the community, great service, great communication, etc. How do you portray that onto your team and sort of reflect that onto your team so that it's not kind of like you're not the pinch point for the business, so that all the team do brilliant customer service, all the team give back to the local community, all the team kind of have that ethos, as long as yourself, and it's kind of out of your head and sort of into their minds as well. How do you kind of make sure that happens?
I think it's about casting that vision and making sure everyone knows exactly what the standards are. And also something I've said a lot, certainly in the last 6 months. I've heard this on a podcast. Someone else said it. Can't remember who exactly, but if we're not making mistakes, then we're probably not moving fast enough.
Yep.
Everyone is allowed, like mistakes are understood. I won't say encouraged, but they're understood. And yeah, from a values perspective, we always try and choose people that have the same shared values as us as people, because typically then they're very much interconnected with the team values. And I sat down with the team, and we should have done this ages ago. Really, we've come together and thought about, well, what are the core aspects and the core values of the team, for which everyone had input in. So we can always use that now as our compass for decision making.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think I had a interview a while ago with Jo Bourne, and she talked about core values. And sort of the story I tell in it is that when I was at a rather large corporate company, they kind of rolled out the core values. I was like, oh, I haven't got anything better to be doing, sort of thing. Shouldn't be just phoning people and kind of doing my job. But then when you own the business, it actually becomes really, really important to have those core values kind of out in paper so everyone understands what's in your head and so everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Yeah. And obviously we had a number of, like, everything came out of my head, and then everyone else had their own input. So it is actually a proper shared set of values for the business. As I say, it's a compass for people to understand what standards we're supposed to be adhering to. And it's always interesting because the team are fully on board, even though some of their ideas particularly were a bit different to mine. The shared values came out even more through that process.
I love that. So let's talk about negotiation. So you mentioned on your website you've got negotiation services for vendors looking to buy their next property. So how does that all work? Chat us through the high level about how that kind of system is set out.
So, like most businesses, we come across a lot more buyers than we do sellers typically. And I thought, given that we have with Keller Williams a background in the US, and there is some brilliant buyers agent services here in the UK for sure. But that in particular part of the process is something that a lot of people struggle with. We've got a new client coming on in the next few days as a seller whose job is sort of a high level sales position, if you will, runs a big part of a big firm, so negotiates large contracts. So someone like that is adept at negotiation. You know, didn't necessarily need our help, but perhaps for a lot of people, I find that they find it quite a difficult thing to do. And my view was, well, can we do that better? Given it's something that we do every single day, can we help people to secure properties for the best prices possible in that respect? Yeah, I think we can. And it's just kind of rolled on from there. So essentially, Mr. and Mrs. Jones say, I like Acacia Avenue. It's up for 250k. This is the top price I'll pay for it. Our job there is to try and deliver it for as much under that as possible.
And do you get a percentage of the money saved, or how does the commercials work on that side?
So it's 20% of the money saved, subject to a minimum fee. But again, it's another one of these things which is it actually comes from the book called Built to Grow by Royston Guest, which I got into because of Perry Power, and obviously Perry does this service as well. But there's a model in there which is about acquiring a client, retaining a client, and then maximizing the potential input to the business. And that's then where this has come from as well.
And talk me through sort of the numbers we're looking at here. Now, I appreciate you can be quite kind of vague with this. I mean, do you do like one of these a month? Is it one per year? Is it one every day? Like, what's the sort of frequency of clients sort of taking you up on this service?
Yes, it's probably at the minute one or two a month.
Okay.
Most of the time, it has been our clients buying on other properties and us helping them there. But really, as well, to be honest, it's something that because the team's just grown, we've now got more time for Ben in my team to focus on doing that more because he's now got an assistant which helps him. So it's definitely something that I think has got a lot of potential and a lot of upside for everyone.
Not very much so. I did so shameless name drop. I was doing a podcast with a guy over in Jacksonville last week, I think it was, and I was explaining that the UK don't have buying agents at all, and he was like, "What? So what you do the negotiation yourself?" And it's like, if you want to view a property, who do you speak to? You like speak to the estate agent. He's like, you don't speak to your buying agent, and they take you around. I was like, no, we did the negotiation. He's like, I don't believe it. So it's yeah, definitely a different world. Something that I think is definitely a bit of an open goal in the UK market, to say the least.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
this might be a bit of a stupid question, but I'm going to take a stab in the dark here and assume that if you've got a person who wants to buy one of your properties and comes forward and saying, "Can you do my buyer negotiation stuff?" Obviously, you've got a conflict of interest there between the vendor and the buyer, I would assume.
Yeah, and we'd obviously disclose that straight off the bat. And if you want to buy that property over there with another estate agent, yeah, no problem. But for ours, we're signed to represent the seller, so we can't get involved in that.
Cool. And you mentioned you're going to look to grow that in the future. What other areas of the business you're looking to grow sort of over the coming couple of years or so? Is it kind of going to grow the team now? Is it to optimize where you are at the moment, or what does the future hold for yourself?
So we're looking to grow our agent count in the team. So at the minute, we're looking to bring agents in around the periphery of Preston. But we would go national as well. I'm from London, so we've got a potential agent that we're hopefully looking to bring in at some point next year to work in London. But our thing is we all want to work with really, really high quality people. And therefore that takes time to find those kind of people. And also, obviously, we're still at, I think, the edge of the cliff, so to speak, in terms of people jumping into the self-employed perspective. But I think there's plenty of people out there who are earning as a valuer, certainly in the Northwest, 25 to 35 grand, who could quite easily earn a lot more than that. And it's not about the money; it's about the reason why I did it is for wealth, but based on the three factors of wealth. Yes, money, of course, time, but also having the choice to do different things when I want to do them.
So you mentioned there about sort of the potential upcoming sort of cliff edge, or you mentioned it for people kind of going into the self-employed world. What do you think makes the difference between the guys that make it and make a real success of it in the self-employed world, like yourself, for example, and the ones that struggle, should we say?
I think that it primarily comes down to having the consistency just to keep going and being down. I said this to someone the other day about I think I might have mentioned this word, the drudgery of the day-to-day consistency. And I think that's the point though. It isn't actually drudgery. That's where the gold is in those day-to-day activities. And it's very easy to give up. So for example, we do direct mail all the time. So some months it will work brilliantly, other months we won't have a lot. But rather than stop doing it, we just change the messaging. But yeah, the picture of the little cartoon guy with the pickaxe and the diamond's just the other side. I think that for self-employment in agencies, the analogy, a lot of people give up just at that point when they need to actually kick on and go again.
So the reason I'm smiling is because literally I downloaded that picture this morning. I've got a post
Okay.
going up on Thursday, which is
Okay.
literally that exact same image and that exact same message. Like you read my mind on that topic. Michael, thank you for coming today. You've been an absolutely brilliant guest, mate. Thank you so much. It's been really appreciated.
No worries, my pleasure.
Appreciate it.